What's happening, guys? Today let's talk about legs. I'm going to give you my top 3 best exercises for legs, that is hypertrophy. Also bottom 3 worst exercises for legs when I'm thinking about hypertrophy. But before I start, let me just give you a small disclaimer here. The information that I'm about to give you is based on my opinion, so the information might not be factual. There might not be data or statistic that may support my information. Before you start throwing stones at me, just know that this is an opinion. That is just for the viewer's discretion, to let you know that it's an opinion, it's not a fact. Let me start with hamstrings. So let's talk about top 3 hamstring exercises. Number 1 is leg curl, whichever variation. We have seated, pronated, and standing. Seated, the science says the best because it tends to recruit more muscle fiber when you're executing on it, and also you're comfortable, and you tend to be strong on a seated position anytime you're doing leg curl, that is seated leg curl, as opposed to the first two, that is standing and pronated. Pronated means lying on your chest. That is number 1. Number 2 is stiff leg deadlift. Stiff leg deadlift, dumbbells, barbells, Smith machine, it doesn't matter. As long as you are executing on it well, then I believe you will still get proper results from doing stiff leg deadlift if your execution is 100%. By 100%, you're thinking about pushing your knees backwards plus your hips, but the only joint that will be moving between your hips and knees, knees and the hips, it is only the hips. The knees are constantly fixed on one position, but the hips are moving up and down because you need to flex forward if you want to do what? To stretch the hamstrings. And then you do it from a dead position. So the weight must touch the floor after every rep. So it's not like Romanian deadlift. There is a small difference between the two because of the bending of the knees. That is my number 2. Number 3, I'll go for hip thrusters or glute bridges. The difference between hip thrusters and glute bridges is glute bridges, you're doing them on the floor, while hip thrusters, you're doing it on a bench, like your back is supported. So there is a machine for hip thrust, which is a very, very effective machine. It's just that most gyms in Nairobi, they don't have that machine. But if you're lucky, you can even use the Smith. I prefer using a Smith machine than the barbell. The barbell, it's too much nerdy because you have to think about the setup. The setup will take you like 10 minutes for you just to engage your hips properly. And you haven't even counted the first rep. You haven't started it yet. I believe Smith machine and the hip thrust machine, they are very effective anytime you think about doing hip thrust. And I think that's why most men don't like it, because of the setup, and then it's so uncomfortable. But it's a very good exercise for your glutes and hamstrings. Totally, I agree with that. Hip thrust, I can say, is one of the most overused exercises by women, followed by Romanian deadlift. Those two, women love it like a piece of pie. Let's talk about now glutes. Yes, let's talk about glutes. Number 1 exercise for glutes, I'll go for Romanian deadlift now. For hamstring, I say stiff leg. For glutes, I'll say Romanian deadlift. Heaviest Romanian deadlift. Using a dumbbell, using a barbell, Smith, it doesn't matter. What matters is your execution. If you have proper execution, you'll find out that your glutes will actually respond better to this exercise. Another thing you need to know, when you're now doing a Romanian deadlift, I'll give you a few cues. When you're doing RDL, you're only coming just within the mid shin here. You see, at the mid shin, you stop at the mid shin, then you come up explosively. Another thing you need to know is think about maintaining a neutral spine always when you're doing stiff-legged and even Romanian deadlift. So by maintaining this, you'll have to push your hips far much behind anytime you're bending. Think about your hips and glutes anytime you're doing this movement. Don't think even about your knees. Think about pushing your hips behind kabisa, and then come up straight. Do that repeatedly for the number of reps you've been told, and to be honest, you'll see results. Also, if you're putting enough volume, or rather even intensity, volume and intensity, whichever, that is, I'm talking about load and intensity, the toughness of the exercise, then you'll see great results. Number 2 exercise for growing big nyash, I'll go for lunges, walking lunges. If I'm doing static lunges, I'll do deficit lunges, but I prefer walking lunges. And then I prefer covering a very long distance. And then I don't go for heavy dumbbell. I just go for a light dumbbell because in most cases I normally use it as an accessory. So I'll start off with these major compounds and then I finish with the kinda lunges. Lunges is a very good exercise for your glutes. If also you measure your steps. So when you're targeting your glutes, you need to make at least a wider step than the usual step. So just a tiny bit, like 5 inches away from the ordinary lunges. Walking lunges in quotes. Yes, lightweight, and then try to put your torso up when you're doing lunges. It's just like when you're doing front squat. Another thing, you can also do Bulgarian split squats. Bulgarian split squat, walking lunges, they're more of the same thing. Bulgarian split squats, going up and down. Walking lunges, back and forth. Or rather, lunges, you're alternating your legs, just like squats. Also, that one will do you wonders. Last exercise for your booty, I'll go for hip abductor. Hip abductor. Hip abductor is like taking out your legs or your thighs away from the midline. It could be standing and it could be also seated. It doesn't matter. And thinking about now resisting the weight when you're bringing your thighs together. So you resist on your way back, but you do explosive reps. That's when you will target your gluteus medius and the minimus. The first 2 exercises, they are for your maxima. Maxima is now the cheeks. You understand? So I've talked about RDL, walking lunges, summer split squats, armor stationary lunges, deficit, and also I've spoken about abductor, hip abductor machine, standing or seated, it doesn't matter. Hi, let's talk about quads. My top, best of the best quad exercises. I'll start off with any sort of machine that is looking like leg press, that is looking like hack squat or pendulum squats. If you cannot access these machines, you can also go for Smith squats. That one will be mine. Either of those 4, I'm good to go. So I've talked about leg press, pendulum, hack squat, Smith. They're very good equipment for development of your quads together. When you're using Smith, try this hack. Set your heels and then just do the normal squats. Make sure your heels are elevated and then just play around with tempo and reps. I know some of you are asking, whoa, what about barbell squat? Barbell squat is still nice if you do the same. If you elevate your heels, you'll attack your quads accordingly. Try that one. If it's possible, try a cannonball stance. Cannonball stance is where your toes are looking like this. So your heels, they're nearly close together, but you have elevated your heels. So you must elevate your heels in order for you to feel the effect of this so-called cannonball stance. That one you will yield massive results. Number 2 for quads, I'll go for lunges again. Lunges, they are good exercises for development of your quad. Either here you can make baby steps, like the ordinary steps, it doesn't matter. Cover a longer distance, grab some decent amount of weight, and trust you me, you will see good results. And lastly, for the quads, I'll go now for the ordinary squats, so typical squats, and then I go just below 90. Just below 90, it's not to go as to grass, just below 90, and then I come up. And then make sure your heels are elevated. Here it's a matter of like it or not. Are you comfortable or not? If you're comfortable on a flat surface, like without elevating your heels, still good to go. If you feel like you need extra range of motion, use the wedges. Some might just use the lifters, or rather you can just step on those plates. And I believe they still work the similar magic.